Good evening and welcome to NTV's Grow. I'm Steve White. Tonight on the program, we'll take a look at extreme weather. It's again causing farmers to delay the start of planting. And we will talk with an expert about the climate. He says he does not believe in global warming. We'll explain. And when planting finally does occur, we'll talk about the investment and how many billions Nebraska farmers are putting in the soil. But we start with a look at headlines. Corn planting is off to a standstill right now. Cooler temperatures and a wintry mix of storms are mostly to blame. The USDA crop progress report shows no acres of corn planted so far. Only about a day and a half were considered suitable for field work. This time last year, 13% of the crop was in the ground. In Kansas this time last year, 30% of corn was planted. Now the recent report shows 5% planted this year. Time isn't up just yet, but many farmers are certainly anxious to get here inside their planter and get that crop in the ground.
For the planter, we're all sitting at the starting gate ready to go.
He's got a new planter with new gadgets. But Doug Sathoff hasn't been able to get in the field just yet, when last year by this time he was halfway done planting corn.
Quit paying attention to the calendar right now and just pay attention to soil temperature and just make sure we do it right the first time.
Agronomists say that's the right call because of the record cold.
We're about 14, almost 15 degrees below normal.
Farmers need to forget what they've been taught.
It's a different year. We're writing a new textbook this year.
2012 was a real page-turner, with one record after the next in the books. Despite the drought, farmers like Doug had good yields on irrigated acres.
I hate bragging too much, but
And they start 2013 with much-needed rain.
it's nice to see puddles at the end of the field and little water standing in the rows, and it was something we haven't seen for a while.
Right now we have sufficient moisture to get our crop established, but after establishment I think we'll run out right away, and so because we just don't have much moisture in the second and third foot.
Weather has also delayed fertilizer applications, but experts say that's a secondary concern.
Get your seed planted, get it in the ground. We'll take care of those other things later.
Spring weather arrives late, but never too late for Doug to use his new planter for the first time.
We got plenty of time. We'll get it done, and once we get going, it'll go pretty fast.
Nebraska's drought certainly isn't over just yet, but that rain that Doug talked about has certainly improved conditions, not just in central Nebraska, but across the state. At the start of April, 75% of Nebraska was rated as the worst of the worst. Now that's dropped to only 8%. That's a huge swing on the drought monitor map produced by the University of Nebraska. Still, more than 90% of the state remains in extreme drought. We may have warmed up just a bit here recently, but those recent spring rains, they have caused some problems, at least for cattle producers. The USDA progress report shows young calves required extra attention. Wet soils provided few dry places to lie down. In addition, temperatures, which averaged 9 to 15 degrees below normal, stressed the new arrivals. The moisture is welcome to parched pastures, but pastures continue to show little growth. This is forcing producers to draw on already short forage supplies. As the weather begins to thaw, the nation's new farm bill is still on ice. Nebraska farmers on both sides of the political spectrum have been frustrated by the process. Farm groups were willing to make tens of billions in cuts, but with the looming fiscal cliff, Congress failed to pass a new farm bill this past New Year's and instead continued the old policy.
Was a badly mangled, partial, temporary extension of the last farm bill. So we didn't even get a lot of those expired programs that we need to be able to help deal with the drought, for example, the Livestock Disaster Assistance Program.
The head of Nebraska Farmers Union blames Republican leaders, including Nebraska's congressional delegation, for failing to be stronger advocates for agriculture.
And I've been a part of all of the farm bills since 1972. We have never been this dysfunctional.
Things could be looking up. There are reports House Republicans may begin rewriting the bill next month. It's a decision that worries many farmers as the Iowa Supreme Court rules farmers can be held liable for injuries their guests sustain on the farm, even those out for hunting, fishing, even snowmobiling. John David reports.
This Clinton County, Iowa farm became an international learning lab last August.
This particular location has had very, very little rain.
3 busloads of South American farmers studied parched crops during the drought.
This corn, it's looked really bad.
Everybody that comes out and spends some time on the farm really appreciates the opportunity to do that with us.
Sixth-generation farmer Dennis Campbell says it's just the right thing to do.
A lot of kids today think about their food coming from the grocery store.
But Campbell and other farmers are disappointed by a Supreme Court decision. It could force them to pay the bills for accidents during tours or recreational activities, reversing a long-time policy.
All of a sudden you've got, I'm going to say something coming out of left field here that really kind of threw the agriculture industry for a loop.
And for farmers like Dennis Campbell, it's another case of the court system interfering with business. Changes that could end a variety of charitable contributions. That could threaten annual events on his land.
This is a facility that's been in place for 4 years now.
And silence his indoor batting cage. Local teams practice here for free.
So this is what we use to plant corn.
With spring planting just days away, hope for legislative action.
All those things become in jeopardy, and we just want to get some clarity.
Otherwise, these tours could be harvested for good.
More Nebraska beef is headed overseas as the Nebraska Department of Agriculture reintroduces a formerly popular brand back to Japan. Spencer beef was popular in Japan before U.S. beef exports were halted in 2003. Japan recently decided to allow U.S. beef imports from cattle under 30 months of age. The promoted Spencer beef will be produced only at Cargill's plant in Schuyler and will be branded as a Nebraska product in the Japanese market. How'd you like to do some research on your farm to help others? The Nebraska On-Farm Research Project is trying to address issues like profitability and natural resources. Here's how it works.
Well, basically what we're wanting to work with producers, and if they're thinking about changing some of their cropping practices, we at UNL would help design an experiment where they do some replicated strips and they can compare any of their practices, new products that they might be wanting to try, and by doing this, they're going to know, did that practice make a difference or was it just random error?
Now is also the time to sign up to become more of a leader in Nebraska's agricultural industry with applications for the LEAD program. The LEAD program is a 2-year leadership development program for men and women in ag business and production.
Our agricultural leadership development program designed to develop future problem solvers, decision makers, and spokespersons for Nebraska's ag industry. We have bankers and those from the financial sector. We have grain merchandisers, implement dealers and salesmen, fertilizer and chemical salespersons. So yes, it's not just the producers, even though that's the backbone of the program. We do have expanded into the agribusiness sector.
We're just yearning for knowledge in Vietnam and Taiwan.
So not only were they kind of helping you out, you were able to talk to them a little bit too?
Yes,
about what you do?
We met with some of their ag leaders, and they actually had a Q&R for us. They actually asked us questions instead of and we were in turn able to ask them questions too.
But what was a question that they asked you?
Well, they really wanted to know how our extension worked, how the extension people are able to get that information out to the farmers, because they want to increase the knowledge of their farming population and teach them better farming practices.
Coming up after the break, we'll talk with a Nebraska climate expert who says he does not believe in global warming. We'll explain. And later in the show, talk about how many billions of dollars Nebraska farmers will spend just to plant corn this year.